These 4 photographs represent the 4 chapters of one of the most important physical trace cases in Australian ufology, and it's the most misunderstood. This is the story of what happened at Horseshoe Lagoon in Tully on the morning of the 19th of January 1966. These photos aren't just evidence, they're the arc of the entire story, and I'm going to walk you through each one step by step. And by the end, you'll understand why this case matters, and why the way it was treated can never happen again. Chapter 1. The Witness. His name was George Pedley. He was a 28-year-old banana farmer, living in Tully, which is in far north Queensland. On the morning of the 19th of January 1966 at about 9 AM, on a clear sunny day in the middle of the wet season, George is driving his tractor along a track which runs beside Horseshoe Lagoon and his neighbour Albert Panisi's property. He hears a hissing sound, like air escaping a tyre. He checks his tractor and all the tyres are fine. He looks up and what he sees is already in the air, roughly 25 to 30 feet up. It's a dull, light grey object, what he estimates to be about 25 feet across and 8 to 9 feet thick. He describes it at the time as the shape of 2 saucers face to face. After he first spots the object, he describes it as rising, tilting, and then accelerating away to the southwest at a steep angle. And it's estimated he saw this object for somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds. Chapter 2. The Anomaly. After the object disappeared, George walked over to the lagoon where he had seen it hovering above before taking off. What he found when he got there was a large circular area of water. An area which usually was full of reeds was now completely clear, and the water in this circular clearing was slowly swirling. He recalls it had looked nothing like this earlier that morning. He left the site and came back a short time later on the same day. Now, there was something else when he returned. A floating green mat of reeds had appeared, in a near-perfect circle about 30 feet across. If you remember, that's about the same size as the object he described seeing. The reeds were fully uprooted and woven in a tight clockwise pattern. Outer edge was pushed down as if something heavy and saucer-shaped had pressed into it. This mat was solid enough that a grown man could stand on it without sinking. That afternoon, George's neighbour, Albert, arrived. He took photographs and swam underneath this floating reed circle. He said the floor of the lagoon was clean, almost as if it had been vacuumed of roots and debris. And here's something even stranger. Within hours, the top surface of the reeds began turning brown, while the underside stayed green, when it typically takes days for this browning to occur after reeds have been removed, almost as if it had been affected by something, which wasn't the sun. George reported the incident to Tully police that evening. The next morning, he returned with Sergeant Moylan. The RAAF was notified the same day, and a grass sample was taken and sent for analysis. Now, the University of Queensland found nothing chemically unusual. The RAAF's internal view was that the depressions in the swamp grass were caused by small, isolated water spouts. Something that looks like this. And their view was that the object George had seen was simply reeds that were taken up by this waterspout. But the RAAF's explanation doesn't hold up, because as we know, there wasn't an absence of reeds from the lagoon. They had momentarily disappeared and then reappeared once George revisited the site. So unless the reeds had been taken up by the waterspout, and then the waterspout decided to put them back in the exact same place, the RAAF's explanation is meaningless. Investigations of the area, testing of the samples, and interrogation of the people involved had revealed nothing of significance, and there was still no explanation for the object that George had reported seeing. Let's remember that this is not a random patch of flattened grass. It was a precise geometric anomaly woven together so tightly that it was possible for a man to stand on top of it, whilst it was suspended in the lagoon. Chapter 3. The first crop circle. Now, this story did not stay in Tully. Within days, it was national news, and then it went international. Newspapers overseas picked it up. The idea of a saucer nest, a precise circular mark left by something that had just been seen, entered the global conversation. And you need to remember, this was years before the term crop circle was even coined, and decades before the complex English formations of the 1980s and 90s. The Tully case was widely considered a precursor to the global crop circle phenomenon. It introduced the concept of unexplained geometric ground formations into the modern public awareness. Later researchers and even English circle makers themselves pointed back to Tully as the earliest reference point. What started as a quiet morning on a cane field in the far north of Queensland became one of the first international stories of this kind. So now we need to look at why this case turned to ridicule. Chapter 4. Ridicule. This is why most people have never heard of the Tully case. The first genuine crop circle, reported by a person not seeking fame or attention, but trying to seek an understanding of what they had witnessed. And after it was first reported, the media almost immediately turned. George Pedley was mocked in the newspapers and cartoons. His honesty, his mental state were all questions, and he largely stopped talking about this event in public for the rest of his life. The family lived with the aftermath for decades. Albert kept quiet notes and tried to monitor the lagoon in later years. It's reported that nests continued to appear for years after the initial sighting, but the family grew more private under the weight of the attention and the ridicule, at a time when we should have been looking at what these things actually were. And then the modern crop circle era arrived. In 1991, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley admitted they had been faking hundreds of circles in England, and that the Tully nest had been one of their original inspirations. After that, it seemed every geometric mark in a field was treated as a hoax or a joke, but this original physical trace case got buried under all of that noise. Whether it was just cultural contamination or something close to a deliberate psyop, the effect was the same. The perceived credibility of this initial Tully case was destroyed in the public eye. And whilst this phenomena was reoccurring, it wasn't taken seriously, it wasn't investigated, and this original story faded into near obscurity. And this is a problem we're still facing to this day. And this is the point of sharing the story with you. There's so much noise, there's so many fakes, that genuine stories and genuine footage and real investigation is contaminated. And people that genuinely have stories to share, like George Pedley, learn to stay silent, fearing ridicule, not just by peers, but by the mass media machine. Whether it be televised, print or radio, the weight of the ridicule crushes genuine stories. And I want to tell you that that's why this channel is here. It exists to share genuine stories like this, without passing judgment and sharing only the facts of the matter. So if you've got something to share, I want you to get in touch with me by X, email, or by leaving a comment. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching.